on, Geoff. What is up, dude? How's it going, man?
Man, good. How are you? You're catching a little bit of my computer screen at the top there. Is that better?
All good, man. As long as you're comfy, I can do all this shit in post if I have to, finagle the camera work or whatever. I want you comfy. You know what I'm saying, my man? I appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on, dude. This is so fucking sick.
Actually, I'm looking at the comments right now, and my friend Tasha just commented, "No way." So I guess she was already a fan.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And this is so cool, dude. I mean, this is honestly like a huge thing for, for me personally, being able to have the opportunity talking to, to cats that I enjoy what it is that they're doing or have done, or, I mean, sometimes I like to pop on these things, and I like people having on who, every once in a while cats are like, oh, I don't have anything going on right now. I don't have something new coming up. Fuck that, man. I just, I want to kind of, talk on and enjoy the things in life, and life is good. So I totally appreciate this, dude.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Man.
Awesome.
Happy to be here. It's super stoked that you wanted to talk, because that is how I feel. Like I have nothing going on. So
well, I shouldn't have started that, because I didn't mean that like towards you or anything like that. But every once in a while, I reach out to people and they're like, I don't have anything going on right now. I don't know what I'd talk about. And it's like, dude, what? Like, and I mean, with Culture Shock Civilized, and I've, tried to kind of read through and listen to interviews that you've had, with different things, digging into Culture Shock and Civilized, and Culture Shock being one of those things, even where I got to talk with James and him mentioning, that last show where all of a sudden it's just like mid set, hey, yo, this is the last set, this is it, and it's like,
yeah.
Whoa. So I mean, it's like that record has been huge. Mid 2000s, my buddy Damien introduced me to Culture Shock, and that album, man, I mean, has honestly been continuous reputation and brings us here today. So thank you one more time. Let's start out, prior to any of this, prior to the shenanigan and the DIY scene, the hardcore punk scene, yourself in school, you younger, what were some interests, that you had earlier on, as far as you growing up, Geoff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually got kind of lucky in that I got into music pretty early. I wasn't into like cool music early, but like I didn't really have hobbies before music, because I sucked at sports. I was like super unathletic and shit like that, and I didn't have like tons of friends. So like, this was in the, I was growing up in the 90s, and by the time like I got to middle school, like skateboarding was kind of popping off again. Like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out, and so I got super into that. And like it's just really easy at that point to like just get into weird music, because like, they're putting like, I mean, like arguably like loosely punk songs in like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games and stuff like that. Like that's not the first music I was into, but like it kind of came up. Like I didn't really have like strong hobbies before that point, and those things kind of happened at the same time. Was just like getting super into skateboarding and getting super into like just the broader sense of punk music, around like 7th grade or something like that. I mean, before that I was listening to like fucking Korn and Metallica. So no, I mean, that's what I was into, and that's like still what I'm into. Like if you look, back there, I have like a rack of skateboards. That's like still what I'm into.
I love that. Now was, I mean, and I'm going to assume because you still have, like some on hand and everything too, but was this something where, like skateboarding came naturally to you? Was it something that you had to bust your ass, even in getting like a nice, ollie going? How did that process go? Because I'm interested personally from the fucking terror that I had trying to skateboard for years and years.
Yeah, it was not easy, and I never got good at it. It was mostly just like, at that point, I started skating in like 1997, so I'm skating for like 25 years now. And like at a certain point, it's just like you do it enough and you learn to do like a few things well enough to like, no, I've never been good at it. the original guitar player of Civilized, this guy Michael, was
Uh,
like a fucking ripper, dude. Like we would go skating after Civilized practice, and he'd be like, "Oh, I don't really skate anymore." And we'd go skate these parks, and he'd be skating like 15-foot deep pools, like blasting airs, like I'm super rusty. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like you're an
that's the
actual
worst.
ripper. And I was like over there, like, oh, man, like I can maybe remember how to kickflip today, but yeah, no, I never got good at it. It's just like.
Dude,
I don't know. It was like a weird like way to like sit around in parking lots and hang out with a bunch of other weirdos, and that like super resonated with me. So
I love that. I love that. I mean, like, what was that? You know, like an earlier idea. You know, where did straight edge kind of get introduced to you? Because I feel like skating was kind of a culture too, where that was something where you could kind of find yourself like just out of boredom, hanging out with some boys and everybody's like passing around smokes, or you could be like, hey man, I'm not into that shit. You could find that defining line.
yeah, so I in high school was like a fucking loser, and so like part of it came from the fact that like when I was like 14, 15, 16, whatever, like I just wasn't getting invited to parties or anything like that, so I never drank. And then like it just happened that I met some people whose like older brothers were into hardcore, and so like they knew about like straight edge and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I already don't drink. This seems kind of cool. Like this seems like yeah, I don't have to feel like weird about that. And then like everybody who gets into it gets like super into it for like a couple of years. And so from like the end of high school until I was like I don't know, like 23 or something, I was like super fucking into being straight edge. But yeah, I like, what is it, like a gold star straight edge? Like I've never been drunk. Like I never yeah, it like never was a part of my life. And then I just like met these people, and they were like, yeah, that's like a thing we like listen to bands about. I was like, oh, that's fucking cool.
Sick. No, I
Yeah,
mean,
so it never,
it's cool too. Go ahead.
it never like it got introduced to me, but it was like no functional change, I guess, in like what I was doing.
Oh, okay, got ya. And I just think it's something cool, as far as like, even within like the music scene, I think it's something, for, like younger cats to hear, as far as like, that's not everybody's process. You getting into skateboarding, that's not everybody's process. It doesn't have to be part of that, like, and I can't say like for myself, myself not being straight edge, but I fully support it. I've always loved my boys, as far as having buddies around or whatever. I'm not like drinking or anything like that. And it's a respect thing. It's a thing out of appreciation, because, it's a move for sure, and especially in these kind of subcultures of music, of skating, of biking, it's kind of something that you fall like into sometimes out of just like a boredom or kind of hanging out. But I love the fact of having that difference and having that aspect of like, oh man, fuck that. I'm not into that. I'm not doing it. So that's cool. And I dig it too within the skating culture.
Yeah, and like, the Culture Shock is like maybe a bad example, but that's mostly because I just always wanted to like have a straight edge band and do a straight edge band. But like I could give a shit less. Like most of my friends when I was like living in Cleveland were like dirtbags. Like I had tons of friends who were doing like hard drugs, and like I don't care. Like as long as you're not being like sketchy to me, like that's totally fine. Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
given a shit. It's like people want to party or whatever, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so within, like, do you remember yourself outside of, Tony Hawk games or different things like that, where you were having influences? Did you have older buddies? Did you have maybe local shops around you that were music shops that were influencing you to newer music?
There's a really good record store that's been around in Cleveland for forever called My Mind's Eye, but like I didn't live super close to it, and so like I went there like a handful of times when I was a kid, but I was also not like a lurker. Like I would never feel like I would feel like I was being such an annoying little like punisher if I were to like hang around the record store. And so a lot of it was that I had like my best friend growing up just like luckily also got into punk stuff around the same time as me, but he was like way weirder than I was, I guess. And like so he was like searching out college radio stations and like listening at like 2 a.m. to see if they were playing anything cool. And like we would just make tapes off the radio. And so like
Damn.
my tapes, you know, you'd have like a cassette in the boombox and you'd like listen to the radio and you'd wait to hear like the first 5 seconds of the song you like, and then you'd hit record, so all the songs would start like 5 seconds
Yeah.
in or something. And like mine would just be like whatever, right? Like Nirvana, and then like a Foo Fighters song, and then like you know, it was all grunge shit, right? Because that's like what was playing on like alternative radio. And then he would give me back tapes that were just like, he'd just be like, "Oh, I recorded the entire like 2 hour punk show on the college radio station from like 2 to 4 in the morning on Saturday nights." And I was like, "Oh, well, shit, that's like way cooler." So I learned about a lot of stuff that way when I was like real young, but like not anything super deep cuts. And like I didn't know the names of anything because like he was just hitting record on the songs. So like I think I figured out what some of those bands were, but like most of them I had no idea. I still don't. But then when I got to like high school, like I said, like a bunch of my friends had like older brothers in the hardcore scene and stuff. And actually, you had texted me about Red Idea. Like those guys are like 10 years older than me, and they're like of that crew, and like they taught me a ton about like what's cool and what's not. And like, you know, we have some differing opinions. Like they're cool and really heavy on youth crew stuff, which like my cool maybe doesn't exactly, but kind of does. But like I learned a lot about like proper, like, you know, at the time I didn't know the difference between like it was all just punk to me. And they like help differentiate, like, no, there's like punk and there's hardcore and there's all these other things. Yeah.
You know, and I love that too. And I think from like you mentioning the kind of different, not to say subgenres, because I mean it's still kind of like a hardcore, there is punk and whatnot, but like growing up my biggest thing was always thrash, and then I would hear certain things that were just fast and crusty, and it's like, oh, it's like a punk band. But then all of a sudden I would start having some cats that are like, no dude, that's fucking hardcore, there's a difference. Like listen to the heaviness that they add on top of it, the different vocal styles. Like, no, that's fucking, you know, a little bit later power violence. Like, oh shit, okay, like there's like different steps to these things. Okay. Within
When I
you oh go ahead.
Yeah, like if I list like a couple of my favorite records from like high school, they're like all over the place, and I would call them all punk. And it was like Kill 'Em All, like every Discharge song that I had heard up to that point, like the Black Flag record, you know, like and all of it felt the same to me because I didn't know any better, which is like, I don't know, maybe a little embarrassing, but like now that I look back and I was like, all right, I don't know, maybe it's kind of cool too.
Yeah. I mean, it's not thinking too much about it, you know. And I think even nowadays that's something too, where it's like you sit back and hear that a band is, you know, is this, and it's like, oh no, that's not that. Just looking at it and thinking like, okay, it's fast, it's heavy, and it rocks. Like, hey man, I don't give a fuck what subgenre it is or whatever the fuck you consider it. Like it rules. Like, hey, I'm there for it for sure. You remember what was the first tape or the first CD that you ended up buying yourself?
Okay, I was trying to remember this. I don't think I ever had like been given any music. Like my mom liked stuff, and so she would listen to stuff, but her music was like all over the place. She like really liked Alice Cooper, but she like also really liked the Braveheart soundtrack. And so like it was like all over the place with her. And like I think the first things I ever like I stole from my sister, but like, you know, stole. She was like one room away. She had, I'm forgetting which Queen record it is, but it's like the one with the robot that's like crushing them in his hand on the cover.
Oh yeah, okay.
She had that, and so I listened to that a lot. Oh, I think I got like probably I got like a couple of Madonna CDs or something. But the first thing I think I bought for myself was I think Master of Puppets. I bought the First Limp Bizkit CD, and I'm pretty sure I got dude, I'm like blanking on every record name right now, but the Korn record that was like Follow the Leader. I'm pretty sure I bought all three of those.
Oh man,
and those were like my first purchases for myself.
Dude, absolutely slammer. And you know what's funny too about like earlier new metal shit is that I listen back and I look for, you know, some sort of redemption. You know, nowadays it's like you kind of feel like you grow past it a little bit. But one thing I will say with like that, like Follow the Leader, earlier Korn, early Limp Bizkit, me being a drummer, the snare drums are always so fucking snappy and poppy, dude.
Okay.
I'm here for it still.
I'm going to go out on, okay, first off, I've had this discussion many times. I think nu metal is like the natural progression of New York hardcore. Like, if you listen
Okay.
to the progression of New York hardcore into like when it got really breakbeat heavy in the 90s, and then you keep going, like it makes perfect sense. Like it checks out. And a lot of that stuff is still good. Like I used to be embarrassed to say so, but I used to live with John from Civilized, John Menchaca. And he is just like, has never been ashamed to like stuff, which is something I super, super admire about him. And he would just be like, no, Korn's the heaviest band that's ever existed. And I'd be like, oh. And he'd be like, no, listen to this. He'd be like, listen to this riff. Tell me you've ever heard a heavier riff in your life. And I'm like, I don't know if I have, actually. So like I've come back around to like appreciating a lot of that stuff as like a totally separate thing where I'm not trying to be like, oh, is this good in this context or that context? It would just be like, is it hard? And a lot of it still is. Like a lot of it's super embarrassing, but a lot of it is super hard still.
Absolutely. There's totally like, you know, there's that line where it's like you can only be so proud of it, and then all of a sudden it might be 5 seconds later that you're showing somebody is like, oh fuck. Damn it, I might have messed up a little bit. But this riff that was before this was really cool though.
For sure.
Oh shit, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so from here, where are you discovering live music? You know, maybe it's a local show, maybe it's going to a big box, you know, concert. How do you discover live music?
I actually don't remember how. The first show I ever went to was when they were touring on Through Being Cool, Killer Idols and H2O, which like sounds like, oh, okay, you're like bullshitting. The first show you went to was like, I mean, like not to brag about seeing H2O or anything, but like was actually like a punk show. But I'm pretty sure like that friend that I had mentioned like saw a flyer, maybe heard about it on that like college radio station or something. And so we got my dad to take the two of us downtown to see this show. And I remember like it was so, like looking back on it, it was so embarrassing. Like I was like circle pitting. And I think we like spray painted our hair like pink and orange or something. And we were sweating so much from like circle pitting that it was like staining our shirts. And then like meanwhile, my dad was sitting at the bar. Yeah, meanwhile, my dad was sitting at the bar. He pulled out his old leather jacket and was like reading Tom Clancy or something and thought he was cool. Like the whole thing was fucking embarrassing. But
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it kind of was looking back on it. That was like the first show I ever went to. And then there was like a long time where I didn't know anything that was going on. And actually like the way I ended up finding out about shows later on was just like playing in bands in high school and like being on shows and playing shows. And then you end up like meeting the people who are setting shows up and stuff like that. Because like, you know, there's like message boards and things like that, but I don't remember there being like a good one for like Cleveland punk music at the time. Maybe there wasn't, I just didn't know. But yeah, it was mostly through playing in bands.
Did your dad go to a lot of, or like bring you to a lot of shows and stay, like stick around? Cause you mentioned him like reading books and shit. Like,
that was the only time. And it's because I was like, I don't know, like 11 or 12 or something at the time. And it was like this place called the Agora, which was like kind of in a sketchy neighborhood, and he knew that, and he was like, all right, like you can go, but like I'm definitely going with you. But yeah, like after that point, I don't think he ever went again.
You know, I just asked just because like myself now being a dad, I like think of some of those things where it's like, I don't want to embarrass you. I want you to have a good time, you know, whatever. But, you know, sitting back and just reading a Tom Clancy book, like at the bar, just hanging out, like that's pretty hard in and of itself. Like he's like, I don't want to be bothered with this shit and go have fun and tell me when you want to leave.
Like my dad is mostly shitty, but that's like one of the like really funny, like good memories I have of him. So like I kind of hold on to that one.
Jesus. Oh, God, that's awesome. Okay, for a few favorites, all right, just to kind of dig into, and we've already kind of touched on some of this stuff, but as far as let's talk about riffs. Yourself being a guitarist, long time playing in different bands and things. Bring us back to a couple riffs that come to your mind that you would just consider maybe some of the hardest, maybe two or three.
Okay. I think. Oh, shit. I skimmed through these questions when you sent them to me, but I didn't want to sound too rehearsed, so I didn't read them like super closely and
I
like
love
formulate answers. So I'm thinking now, the song "Trapped Under Ice" by
it.
Metallica, I think is
Oh,
one of them. That
so sick.
fucking solo is so good. Um, the 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 first riff on Ice Grills, the Cold World record, still
Oh,
will like
shit. Okay.
will like instantly make me mosh. And yeah, and maybe like the Riffin' Brotherhood, the DYS song, like just like
Oh man.
the like the intro bass riff, that one. Yeah, I
Damn.
think those are my picks. I
Three rippers.
actually,
Uh,
yeah, the last time I like really moshed, Pat Flynn from Have Heart punched me in the face because Civilized, this was years ago, Civilized played this show, this fest in LA, and his newer band, I think they were called Clear, played. And I was
oh
watching
yeah.
the Rush table when Cold War played, and they just started playing the riff, and I was in the back of the room. I was like, dude, I gotta. And so I like went up on the table and was like trying to head walk from the back, and so nobody could see where I was coming from. And I was just like walking all over people's heads, and I think I stepped like right on his head and got like real bumped and like kind of punched. But like that's, and I was like a grown ass adult at that point. Like that's what that riff does.
Oh my God. uh, all right. What about three of your favorite merch items? And this could come from and something where we're talking tapes earlier, and you're talking recordings too. This could come from trades. This could come from something that you bought, something that you got from a show. What comes to mind? Three of your favorite merch items that you've gotten over the years.
Okay. I have so one for sentimental value would be my friend Mike, who lives in Denver, who's like been into hardcore for forever and has been collecting for forever, and like is just a really rad person. And like every time you hang out with him, he'll like just like random, not every time, but like a lot of times you hang out with him, he'll just like randomly pull some like magic gem out, and just be like, "Hey, do you want this shirt?" And it's like, in my case, I was like at his place and said, "Hey, you like Judge, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You want this like '91 tour shirt?" And just like gave me this like 1990, I think it was a 1991 Judge tour t-shirt. And
Damn.
I was like, "Yeah, I definitely want that. That's so sick." So I'll say that. I'm gonna say my friend, when Red Idea toured Europe, we met this guy Staffen in Sweden who like did this zine called Law and Order. And when I say it was like
Sorry.
a zine, this thing is like a volume. It's like that thick. It's like super professionally bound. It
Damn.
has like hundreds of record reviews and interviews in it. I mean, I could go grab it, but like you get the idea. It's like super cool. And just like he would do like one a year, and I was just like, dude, this is fucking like badass that you like did this so professionally. I would recommend anybody, like, I don't know if they're anywhere online or anything like that, but like somebody should look. And the last is honestly this
Damn.
this tape from this guy in Denver called Earthrax is like the name of the project. And it was this so John Menchaca's other band Goon.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the lead
Yeah.
singer of Goon played
Uh-huh.
Dungeons and Dragons with this guy, and he wasn't like in, as far as I know, he wasn't in bands and stuff, but he was like, I need to make some music for my Dungeons and Dragons games, and he made this like dungeon synth tape, and it's so fucking good. But like the tape is like a
What?
tape with like this really awesome art, and it has like a little scroll in the packaging and like some gems and stuff in this little bag, and like herbs, like sage and shit. It's like so fucking cool. Like when you listen to it, and then you see all this other shit that's like around it. Like I know these are like the least hardcore answers, like they're not like cool and stuff, but like that fucking tape,
Oh, sick.
I still have like it's like on display in my living room because I think it's so cool. But yeah,
Was this like
it's on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or something like that. It's Earth Tracks. It's so good.
Damn. Oh my God, that's insane. I've never heard that. I'm gonna have to go and try and see if I can find it because
it's really
sounds sick.
cool. Yeah.
Damn, no shit. Did they ever like? Was it ever a conversation of trying to do something live, or was this specifically for like a session at home playing the game, or?
I think he just like, I mean, I don't know this person, so like, and this is like the story I heard secondhand, so maybe I'm wrong about all of this, and that's like lore. Maybe that's like lore that was built around it. But yeah, like I thought somebody told me like, yeah, he just like wanted them to have music for their game when they were playing, and so he made this tape, and then it's like fucking so good. It's like amazing.
That's so fucking. I mean, let's just add to it. Yeah, that's exactly that's what fucking happened. That's awesome. No, I
listen to it.
You know,
I listen to it all the time,
dude. That is sick. And yeah, and that's something too. You know that I like appreciate, and I love the fact, you know, because you kind of mentioned it not being like hardcore shit or whatever. Like, I just love, you know, in the hardcore community, and it's even something too within like horror movies or like the horror movie community where it's like not everything is about that. There's sick releases of just any sort of thing that, you know, is outside of the genre, and there's really fucking cool physical stuff that's going on out there. And something, you know, ever since being introduced to like Youth Attack in particular, I mean, just some of the goofy shit that has come out through, you know, some of the records and some of the extras that you get along, or the fucking, yeah, just the popcorn and just the silliness, the knives.
I was trying so hard to do something crazy with the Culture Shock record because, like, I knew the reputation that Mark had for doing like wild stuff, and I remember I brought this idea up to him once. So, like, when we did the record, we had like 2 songs that didn't go on the record. One was like a re-recorded version of one of the demo songs, and the other was a cover. And I was like, dude, Mark, what I want to do so bad is I wanted to have the record be cut all the way to the center and then glue the labels over like the interior part and have them be like secret songs. Like, you remember they used to have on CDs, like secret songs.
Oh shit.
And my goal was like, okay, this way you have to rip the labels off to listen to those 2 tracks. And if you see someone selling a copy on eBay that still has the labels, you can be like, oh, you're a poser. You don't listen to it. You just bought it. But apparently they press the labels in while the record is still hot, like while they're pressing the actual grooves, and so it doesn't work. But I wanted to do that so bad. Damn.
Sorry, I had to pop in a fucking cough drop, so I started coughing. I want to be hacking all over this shit. No, that is so sick. I mean, I've seen like more recently, you know, like with how YouTube is nowadays, they have fucking videos for everything, and just recently seeing how they press, you know, vinyls and shit like that. But like that's something where like if you don't look into that and somebody that, you know, wouldn't necessarily know, it's like, hey, this would be amazing. And like you saying that, dude, I mean, that was like the coolest fucking. And going back to like Follow the Leader, when you popped in that CD, you had to skip to track 13.
Dude,
like,
I know.
How sick?
I know.
How
Dude,
sick?
I got that, and I remember being so pissed because I brought it home and I put it in the CD player, and I thought my CD was blank. I was like, dude, it's not playing anything. I was so mad. I like remember telling my parents, like, it's fucked up. We gotta go back to the store. Dude.
Oh man,
on the
I love
front,
that
there's
shit.
like a sticker that says like 12 tracks of silence. Like, it's right on the front. I just like was too stupid and excited.
Oh my god, it's just, you know, some of that fun and some of the things like secret tracks, and you know, along with those, and you know, and kind of Culture Shock I wanted to touch on a little bit later too with the test presses. I think that's something cool that, you know, kind of goes along those lines of, you know, a different special edition or a digipack. Shit, dude. So sick.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not even gonna wait until a little bit later.
Yeah.
Bring us into that real quick here, as far as this test press and what went into the cover art, the layout for this bad boy. It looks fucking awesome, man.
This is so that's the cover art. I actually didn't see the cover art until it was like pretty much done. McCoy was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do something with wolves, and like honestly, this is like, to me, this is the best representation of the band. Like if you were gonna have like an image that represented the band, this feels like way more like it.
So hard.
This like back cover is a picture my friend Chris Mounts took. Sorry, my best friend Chris Mounts, because I think he would be really bummed if I just called him my friend, because we're definitely besties. But it also has like this really sick like lettering that has like a vanishing point on it. I think that's pretty cool. And then the inside is this like, I think McCoy actually hates this. I think he thinks it's stupid. If I remember right, I think he told me once that he didn't like it, but maybe I'm misremembering. I don't want to speak for him. But my Wolf, who was the original guitar player of Culture Shock, and I had this like dumb idea about like, okay, so like one thing that happened, Minor Threat is great, right? We all like Minor Threat, but like Minor Threat is also like super entry level, and we were like, oh well, like people think of like fast hardcore, and they're like, oh yeah, I like Minor Threat, and we were like, oh well, what if we had like the wolf eating the black sheep from like the Minor Threat design? And so like it's the Minor Threat shirt, but like the wolf is eating the Minor Threat sheep. So that's the inside, and then there's like this very sick insert poster that has that like same lettering.
Shit.
Yeah,
So
the
sick.
test press art is incredible. I love the layout of the test press so much.
Now, let me ask, versus the actual album cover, how do you end up choosing between, or was one ready before the other? And like, I mean, because dude, the red with that border along, so I was just telling my buddy the other day, bar to none, absolutely sick, ripping.
So I hadn't even seen the test press art like until a couple days. Like I think McCoy had them before I ever saw it. I might have seen like the front cover image before that point, but like I didn't really know. I just was like, yo, I trust you, like do your thing, I know it's going to be sick. And so like the original cover art was already decided. There was like a whole process going into that. It like we had plans for it that kind of didn't pan out, and that's fine. But like I knew what the cover art was going to be for the original record, and that was like kind of more of a surprise. So we're in the process of like picking, like, you know, I just like told McCoy to do his thing. Yeah,
it's awesome.
I remember right, I might be forgetting some of this.
No, I love it. I love it.
Great,
dude. It's and it's one of those things where it's like just kind of another step up, as I'm seeing. Like even just today, he posted up like a tour poster he did for Giallo, and I'm just like, motherfucker, man, I don't even want to look at this shit anymore, because like it just keeps on going. Like it just keeps on getting more ripping with all the shit that he's doing. So it's absolutely rad. I love that.
Yeah.
And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, and we'll kind of come back to that too, because I wanted to talk the record and whatnot. But you had the test press there, and that thing was that out of 50?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh,
I think so.
Good enough.
No, I think they were out of 33, if I remember right.
Oh, okay.
I think he does all the test presses out of 33, except City Hunter got way more records because, like, you know, people like loved City Hunter.
Yeah. Okay. Now, last up, as far as we were talking, and we just were talking cover arts. 3 albums that come to mind. You know, we're talking, you know, some favorites here. 3 favorite cover arts of your own, you know, personal favorites that come to mind.
Okay. These are all going to lean heavy on Metallica, because Metallica, like early Metallica was like my favorite thing when I was younger, and like still now. But like the Kill 'Em All cover, I love, is so good. It's such a classic image. Although the Creeping Death cover, you ever see like that 10
dude
that only came out in Europe? That art is
so
also fucking sick.
Sure.
The the Get It Away SSD record, the cover art there I think is really amazing, and like I have strong opinions on SSD's discography, and I think that that's the better SSD record. People always disagree with me on that, but like to me that's like the pinnacle. But that cover, and dude, I'm gonna go with the Shark Attack record, Blood in the Water. Like those like faces kind of like floating above. I think that fucking record is so sick. I went to high school. We didn't go to high school together, but one of my friends in high school got that like tattooed all the way up his arm, just like these giant like faces from the Shark Attack record cover. It's so sick.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back.
Yeah.
That's a band name I haven't heard in a minute. Are any of those fools like doing anything nowadays?
No idea. I wasn't like at the time that they were around. I wasn't like plugged in enough to know people. But like if they are, I definitely want to know because that record.
Right, this record's awesome. So, so you kind of mentioned as far as like interest in things. Now, is guitar the first kind of like aspect of actually getting involved in music? Was that did you have anything banned like while you were in school or anything like that prior to getting into something like that?
So the first thing I got was a bass because I knew somebody who played guitar, and they were like, "Oh, bass is super easy to learn. Like, get a bass. Like, that's what happens to everybody, right?" Mm-hmm. And so I got a super cheap bass, and we like played in a band through high school. The deal was, so this is like kind of stupid. He was like super into like Blink-182, and I at the time was like finally like figuring out like what 77 Punk was, and so I was like, okay, I'll play bass in your like Blink-182 band, but then we have to start another band and play like Ramones, Sex Pistols style stuff, and like you have to play guitar in that. And he was like, okay, deal. And then this makes sense, but as it turned out, like nobody liked that band, and then people that we knew liked the pop punk band. So like I'm pretty sure that band fizzled out after like 6 months, and I ended up in like a weird pop punk band for a long time because I just didn't know anybody else who played music. But it was fine. We played a bunch of shows. It like taught me a lot about how to like, I don't know, like play music, work with people, but like there's like kind of an aspect to like playing shows that you have to learn, like getting over the nerves of it, and like also like there's like this weird, when you're like on stage, like there's this weird time warp thing where like everything feels like it's going faster than it is, and so like you start to panic about stuff. So like it helped to like do a bunch of that in high school, so that by the time I was like 20, I was kind of like a little bit more comfortable with it. But yeah, it was mostly just that kind of shit, and then I just got bored playing bass, so I bought a guitar and started doing that instead.
What was this first guitar?
It was, I wish I'd kept it actually. I didn't know why it was cool at the time, but it was like a Japanese Les Paul clone. And like now I'm super into like those Lawsuit era guitars. I don't think this was from that time.
Okay.
But it was like a Hondo, I think. No, I'm thinking of that because James plays Hondos. I don't remember what brand it was, maybe an Aria or something. But yeah, it was just like a black Les Paul with white binding. And I was like, this is fucking cool. But actually, it was a piece of shit. Like, it didn't stay in tune. It was like, the electronics were terrible. And so I ended up getting frustrated with it and buying another guitar. And that is the, like, it's in the case. But that's like the Gibson, like, double cut one that I played in Civilized. That, like, I really wanted a yellow one, the, like, TV yellow ones, because that's what Johnny Thunder played.
Okay.
But they're like way more expensive. They're super hard to find. So I like had to reason with myself that the red one was still cool because the guy from Larm played a red one, which is like not that cool of a thing. Like nobody cares about that band, but whatever.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's what makes you happy. It's what like you kind of hit it on the head earlier about it being something that's your interest. And you know what? Fuck it. If you don't like it, I like it, and I think it's sweet. So you go with it. As long as it works, that's where the frustrating thing is when something looks sick, and then it like goes out of tune all the time, or it fucking is like messed up. Then it's like, fuck, man. I chose this guitar because it was a Warlock, and it doesn't do any of the shit that I need it to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Oh god, have you ever? Okay, let's dig into this, Geoff. Have you ever played a Warlock? Let's talk about these really quick. Are they as cool as they look?
Okay. I don't think I have. No, I'm pretty sure. I don't even think I have a Guitar Center or anything like that. I don't think I've ever touched one.
What about a Flying V?
I would. I have. Actually, my roommate in college, my sophomore year, was this like person I didn't know. And like we sent each other a few emails to like figure out what we needed to bring and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna have some music stuff. He's like, cool, I got a guitar, I'll bring my guitar. And yeah, it was a fucking Flying V. And so I would like, when he wasn't around, I'd like sit in the room. I couldn't figure out. I took me forever to figure out that like your leg is supposed to go in between the V. So I was like sitting, holding it super weird. They're like incredibly uncomfortable guitars.
Dude,
absolutely. I did not like that thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so and this is funny because you just said Guitar Center. So let's just say that you take a trip to a Guitar Center or a local music shop. What is the bad boy that's like the dream guitar that you would just take off of the top if you could play it? And what's the riff that you're playing in Guitar Center? What's the first thing that comes to mind that you're going to rip on this bad boy? Okay. I thought of this like 20 minutes ago, and I was like, fuck, this rules.
Well, this is good. So currently I have my Les Paul. I have like a custom Jazzmaster that I really like. But like the two things I still have left on my list, and I want to get Japanese clones of each of them, are like an old Fernandez Mustang. And I want to get one of the like late 70s Bernie era Firebirds. Because they're like really sick, they're like really high quality, and like they have like all the original stuff. Like they have like the era appropriate like tremolo arm, and they have like the right pickups. They're not mini humbuckers, they're like the actual like right like plate magnet single coils, and it's neck through. So if I could find like late 70s, preferably Bernie, but any like of the big like Japanese clone makers Firebird, absolutely. And honestly, if I had to pick a riff, like I'm not a super good musician, so like most of the riffs I play are riffs from bands I've been in. Like I know like again, I know like a handful of Metallica riffs, and I know like the songs that I've been in bands that have written, or the songs that we've covered. So like maybe I would play like, oh, maybe Ain't No Feeble Bastard. Civilized used to cover a Life's Blood song. Maybe I'd do that. But yeah, I just like don't really know a lot of riffs, unfortunately. Like I'm not that kind of like musician.
I think the fun of it though is just sometimes when you're in those kind of like weird, like vulnerable moments, and you're just sitting down, it's like, fuck, what am I thinking of? Like, okay, I'll just whip out, you know, this, and kind of just want to see, because that's one of those things where, like, I mean, myself playing drums for all these years, it's like you can't really go like Guitar Center will have a kit set up, but like it's never really what the fuck you want to play. It's something that's $4,000, and it's like, dude, I don't have that. Like I need to figure out something that's gonna sound like this, but it's like a couple $100, dude.
Yeah, I have. Unfortunately, as I've gotten older, I've gotten into like spending more serious money on gear, which is like such a bad habit to get into, but it's also kind of fucking fun.
And then like Marketplace, like thank God for that, dude, because I've gotten some shit through that where I'm like, whoa. I've even told a couple of people like, hey man, I'll give you a little bit more than what you're asking because I don't think you know what it is that you have, and I feel bad like completely fucking you out of this.
You can find crazy deals. What I've actually been really obsessed with gear-wise lately, I have it on my desk, so I'm going to show you. Will, who does like Dead Air Studios, has been making these pedals. Dude,
fuck yes, that is awesome.
These things are incredible. So this one
is so like, sick.
It's essentially like a broken synthesizer where you can like not give it the right voltage, but it also has these like photo sensors in it that just like change all the parameters based on like how the light is hitting it. It's amazing. And then this one is like insane. 8 just like drone oscillators. Is it 8? No, it's 5 drone oscillators just in a pedal. And if you like tune them up right, it just sounds like the gates of hell are opening. They're so sick. I love the stuff he's doing right now. I want to buy like all of his pedals, but the noise pedals in particular are like so much different than anything else anybody's doing. They're really badass. I actually just saw he posted something about doing another one like with the guy from Hotel. I'm like, I don't really care about that band, but like the demo of it sounded amazing, and I want one so bad. Man. I'm definitely gonna buy one.
It's funny too that you're like mentioning this too. It was literally last night he had posted up whatever he posted. I messaged. I'm like, man, just a round of applause. Like, not only the fact that I see your fucking name on everything, but then you're also putting out these pedals and they're like insane. You know, it was cool because I got to interview him, and within that time, you know, just kind of tossing out ideas of something that was a little bit different. I was mentioning because he was doing these different pedals. I'm like, hey, would you want to do kind of like a showcase of like something new that you have going on? He did like a full like video and just kind of did like a different presentation of like playing through. I'm like, fuck, man. But yeah, those things are awesome.
They're awesome. I'm doing this band with like Alex from Regional Justice Center and Joey from Raw Breed. And like when we show up to practice, like, I have those two. Alex has the same orange one and one other one. Joey has two of them. And like, dude, you can just like sit there and just like make this like cacophony when you turn those things on. It's so sick.
You know, okay, so here's something that always like throws me for, you know, a little bit of a loop. And obviously, like, I'm not a guitarist, so these things don't process to me. When I'm in a band and somebody's like, hey, come here, I gotta do this and this. I'm like, dude, what the fuck do I need to do? Like, do you need me to put like a chord in something? Like, I don't know what you're fucking saying, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have like a pedal, like the second one that you had there, are you taking pictures? Are you leaving a specific pedal at a setting because you're wanting that sound? How are you getting back into like that memory?
I have quite a few pedals that like do have some amount of like preset saving on them.
Okay.
But for the most part, I just play with them a lot. So I didn't used to be a big pedal person. Like when I was doing, when we were doing Civilized, I just had one pedal and it was only for one part in one song. And it was just like a big ass reverb. And so like, I went to Guitar Center. I was like, I want a reverb that's like high quality, but like sounds bad. And the guy was like, oh, I think I know what you want. And I would just like, I didn't have to remember anything because it was just all the way up.
Okay.
And it was for like the last song on the Civilized LP has like that solo. It's just for that, to make it sound like bigger and more filled out. But now I'm like an insane pedal person. Like I can, hold on. Like this is my current pedal board right
what
now.
The fuck?
And that's not even all of them. That's just like what I use for like playing guitar like all at the same time. But yeah, a lot of it is like just having them for years and knowing how they work enough to like know how to dial it in. But like, I don't know, there is like my partner makes the joke that if I ever like piss them off, they're just gonna like walk in and like turn all the knobs. Because I think they saw like some TikTok about it or something once, and you know, it's like,
oh god, you know, like you gotta love technology, except for when it teaches your loved ones to fuck with your pedals or fuck with your drum tunings.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, dude, that is great. Okay, so from, you know, these earlier times you discovering music, you have, you know, kind of some first bands taking on shows. How does Right Idea come into the mix? You mentioned the rest of these fellows being a little bit older. How do you meet them, and how does, you know, this band come about?
Right Idea was actually a band before I was in it, so I joined later. I'd been doing other bands, like I did this like Japanese hardcore band, like kind of Burning Spirit style thing called Wind of Death for a little while, and I was doing like just some other like random hardcore bands, like just whoever I could find to play music with, like I was down. I did this like fastcore band called As Good as Dead while I was still in college. And like eventually I just like knew these guys, and the bass player is like one of my friends from high school, so like he's my age. And and they knew I like loved the band. Like when the demo came out, I was like so into it. Actually, if you look at the record cover, there's like it says like right idea, and there's like the two bars at the bottom. There's like
Mhm.
a shot of Geoff the singer, and like you can see my face like singing, like screaming along the words, because I think
Oh,
that was at their first
shit.
show.
Okay.
But yeah, they were supposed to go to Europe, and John, who is the guitar player who's always been in the band, knew he wasn't going to be able to go. And this was like it was like a year and a half beforehand or something. They were planning things like super far out, and so they were like,
Oh.
"Well, do you want to come on tour with us next year?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Well, do you want to just like be in the band and play like play second guitar, and then we can have like a more full sound?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely, I want to do that." And so from like I don't know, like mid 2009 until the end of the band, I was in. But yeah, they had already like the record I think had like just come out when I joined the band.
Okay.
And then we did a repress of the record after I was in the band. Excuse me, and we did one new 7-inch that like nobody heard and was like kind of it's fine. But like playing those shows was great. Like this was at the time when like that like third wave youth crew revival was going on, and like most of those bands were like not great, but there's a couple really good ones. Like Mindset was around at that time, and like we played a bunch with them right when they were starting out, and like that band's demo is so good. It's like one of the only like it's one of the only bands that like does the youth crew thing and wasn't in the first wave youth crew that like actually gets it right and is like still angry. Like you listen to like the late 90s youth crew revival, and like I loved all that stuff at the time, but you listen like In My Eyes and you're like, this is like a pop punk band. Like it's not like I don't know why this is youth crew. Like it's not. But that Mindset demo and the first 7-inch, even all the stuff was really good, but that demo was fucking incredible. And that stuff was tons of fun, like playing a bunch with them, and like fuck, that band from Detroit.
Which one?
Base Reality.
Oh, okay. I heard Detroit, and I was like, wait, what? Which one? No, okay, damn.
Yeah,
Within
rules.
within the Cleveland area, like at the time, was there a pretty happening scene? Was it something to where, myself, being from Midwest, being from Michigan, knew about, like areas, Chicago, and there was different things that were kind of going on in like Indiana, but I never was really too hip on to different things as far as within, the Cleveland area or Ohio, even though right under us. But was there a lot of shows going on then?
I think that Cleveland has like one of the, obviously I'm super biased, but I think Cleveland has like one of the sickest hardcore histories and like scenes that there is. Like if you look back, obviously there's Integrity. Everybody thinks of Integrity and Ringworm, but there was also like Confront, like that late 80s straight edge band that was like super, super good. Fox Terror was like incredible. The H100s are like one of my favorite bands. Then you can go like even a little farther back, and there's like this really weird band from the early 80s called Spike and Vein, which is kind of like on the more flipper end of things, where it's like kind of weird and like not pleasant sounding, but it's like so good. When I first came up, I actually hated the music scene in Cleveland, because like when I was coming up and starting to go to shows, it was around the time of like Integrity 2000, and so like metalcore was like everybody was doing metalcore stuff, and I was like, this shit sucks, dude. But I just didn't know that there was other stuff going on. But like one of the really awesome things is Paul, who was in that band, The Inmates. He had a bar. He like bought a bar called Now That's Class, and so there was like an actual like person from the hardcore scene who had a proper space to do shows. And so like there wasn't like asshole bouncers, and it wasn't a VFW hall. Like you could go to shows and like people could go crazy and like mosh and stage dive, and they had like a giant skate ramp in the back, and like it was all just like fucking it was like everything goes because he got it. And so yeah, I was going to, and there was also at the time some friends of mine were doing like a DIY spot called The Tower, and just having shows like 3 or 4 times a week at their DIY spots. So like for a while around like 2010, yeah, I was going to shows like probably 4 or 5 times a week because they were just finding bands to play. There's always something going on. Maybe not that much, maybe like
Fucking
2 or 3 times a week, but still, yeah, I was going to shows constantly, which
Damn.
is really great.
And it's crazy too, because even like now that it's class, I don't know if it was something that if COVID ended up fucking that place over, or if it's still around. But I know, I mean, recently it was still around, and I knew like friends that were playing there all the time and shit.
So apparently, Paul decided that he wanted to move to the Bahamas, so he sold it to somebody else. I don't remember who, and they're like keeping it as a show space and stuff. But I think it has a different name now. I think they're just calling it Class, like so that it's like still kind of the same. But I haven't been since then. I haven't been back to Ohio in a while, so I'm not sure like what the vibe is.
Oh, okay. Dude, there's absolutely still a ripping scene. Right now.
I don't know if that was
This
me or what, but yeah,
No, it was on my
I'm
end.
back.
There's trying to fucking some rat bastards trying to call me at 10 o'clock at night. What the fuck's going on here? Jesus H. Anyway, no, there's a sick scene. Columbus, Cleveland, Last Gasp and Love, Rejoice, Slug. There's some sick fucking bands that are out there, and it's cool because it's like a core group of guys that just have spread and kind of like many scenes have like made a whole bunch of ripping fucking bands, man.
That band, Last Gasp, I'm pretty sure this guy Sean plays bass in that band. I was in a band with him like something like that when he was still like in college. It's when I was like I was like 24 at the time or something,
Okay.
and I was like skating with my friend, and these two kids are walking down the street, and one of them says like, "Hey, do a kickflip." And I had literally just gotten back from Right Idea tour in Europe like 2 days earlier or something like that. And so I hadn't skated in like over a month. And I like tried to do a kickflip and I didn't land it. And my friend was like, "Yeah, well, like whatever. He's been on tour, so like his legs are jacked." And they were like, "Oh, who's he been on tour with?" And he said like Right Idea. And I was like, "Dude, they're not gonna know who that band is. It's like this small college town." And they were like, "Wait, really?" And so I like randomly met going through that, and then we did a band for a little while called Dismantle that they did like way after I left, but I was like drumming for that band for a minute.
Oh
Yeah,
shit. Okay.
Sean's a good guy. I haven't seen him or spoken to him in like a million years, but he's a good guy. And like Ryan
Dude.
Hartman's in that Last Gas
Yep.
thing too, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. And
I haven't talked to
he's
him in
been
forever
around for a
either, but
while, and dude, that band rips.
dude,
I
I
absolutely love
remember
them.
his dude, Ryan's band Never Say Die when I was like in high school was like the big shit in Cleveland.
Too. Oh my god, that's gonna be funny. I'm gonna have to mention that we got on the topic tonight because there was a couple of years ago the vocalist in my old band. Well, actually, he's a vocalist in my band right now, but he throws a fest called Sweat Fest in Grand Rapids in Michigan here, and they had booked Last Gasp, and it was like 6 days out from it. All of a sudden, their drummer had gotten COVID, and they're like messaging him like, "Dude, we're gonna have to drop. Our drummer got COVID," and he's like, "Yo, our drummer, which is me, loves your band. Like, he could probably figure out the set." And it was like 5 days. I figured out their whole fucking set and ended up playing with them, and it was awesome. But it was like, dude,
This is the perfect connection. We both drummed for Sean's bands.
Wait, so when do you like discover playing drums? Like, was it something that you bought and you'd like gotten a kit or?
No, they had a drum kit, and we didn't have a drummer. I could probably try it, and it was bad. Like, it was bad. I think we played like 2 shows with me in the band, and I like couldn't keep up. Like, it is not something I'm good at. And like, I seriously, anybody who can drum in a hardcore band like blows my mind because that shit is hard.
It is, and I think with age, honestly, the worst part of it, and like for younger cats that are just getting into it too, is it's like it's the hauling, dude. The hauling of shit back and forth is the worst. I love playing. I love, I don't mind setting up and tearing down. The hauling this bullshit up and down flights of stairs, that's a wrap. I'm good with it.
The only shows we ever played were at their house where we also practiced, so I didn't have to set anything up. So I don't know the pain there, but
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thank God. So within, like this like local scene that you have, bring us back to, how you end up getting connected with the fellas in Civilized, and how like the whole Denver idea comes to you as far as moving.
Cool. Okay, so I went to Denver to go to grad school. I graduated college in 2009, and like there was, it was like the financial crisis, right? Like the jobs like didn't exist, and so I was working at a coffee shop, and I was like, well, this sucks. I go to shows most nights, so I'm out super late, and then I was having to wake up at like 5 a.m. to serve coffee to somebody who's like super pissed because they haven't had their coffee yet. I was like, this sucks. Like, and so I was like, well, whatever. If I go, I had like student loans coming up, and so I was like, whatever. If I go to grad school, they won't make me start paying my student loans yet. And so I went to grad school in Toledo, got my master's, and that's like when I knew Sean and stuff. And at that point, I was like, oh no, I really like this. And so I actually moved to Denver to do my PhD. And so I was starting grad school there. No, it's fucking stupid, but I'm technically a doctor.
Holy shit!
I know. People always think that's kind of strange.
Brother, you're a doctor of riffs. I'll tell you that much. Okay, whatever else you're fucking doctor of and sick, but
there we go.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, so no, you're good. So I got to Denver. I didn't know anybody. I went to like a couple shows that I'd heard about and got like connected with these people who played music, but like it was not the kind of music I was into. They were like super into like mid 2000s, like Blacklisted, Have Heart kind of stuff, which is fine, but it wasn't what I was into. So I was like playing in this band just because I like wanted to know people who played music, and that's where I met Wolf actually, who ended up being in Culture Shock. But like honestly, the Civilized thing came up. I don't even remember how he got my information. Zach Rainey, I think, emailed me and was just like, maybe it was an email, because I don't know how he would have gotten my email, but he like randomly just like hit me. I was like, hey, do you want to be in Civilized? Because I'd seen Civilized at that point, and I think like I'd worn a straight ahead shirt to like a show, and Michael, who was in the band, was like, that's a cool shirt, and like didn't say anything else. And so if you ask James, is that James tells the story, is he's like, yeah, we saw this new guy who like was wearing the right band shirts and stuff and like knew what was up, and so we wanted him to be in the band. And it's like, okay, so they like just randomly were like, do you want to be in the band? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like I thought the Civilized demo was fine. Like I didn't think the Civilized demo was amazing by any means, but they were pretty good live. And I fucking loved Cadaver Dog. And so that's, I don't know if I've ever told James this, but that's like why I wanted to be in Civilized. Just like, oh, fucking Cadaver Dog is incredible. Like Civilized is good, but Cadaver Dog is incredible. And so, yeah, we like, cool, we got a show like next week. So like between this practice and next practice, you got to learn the set. And then we're recording the 7-inch like a week after that. And so I was like, all right, let's go. And so we did that. And that's literally all it was. Like, I didn't know them at all the first time we had practice. I'd like never met any of them.
What a fucking gamble. Like, there's been a few times you go to a show and like you see somebody where it's like, man, they're wearing the right shit. But there's also like other times where you're like looking at somebody and you're just like, man, I can't tell if this cat could even hold a guitar. Like, I maybe, but like that, I mean, that's pretty sick that they, just had like, was it just like a mutual spot to where they're like, hey, we don't know this motherfucker, but if all else fails, dump him out the fire exit. You know what I'm saying?
Apparently James was like kind of against it at first because even though I wore the right shirts, there was like a Denver message board, and I asked if anybody had like the MP3s of the second Kulo record, and he was like, "I want this Cleveland scum punk in my band." And I was like, "Dude, you can like Straight Ahead and Kulo, like that's fine." But apparently he was like on the fence about it because I asked about Kulo.
Oh yeah. Shit, that was funny. But like,
James
so
is a trip.
yeah. I know that him and Josh. I got to have both of those guys on at the same time, and it was hard to know like when to cut because it's just kind of like a good like circle thing going on as far as like a conversation. I'm just like, fuck, man, I don't know where to end this. This is great. But both rascals, absolutely. So. How long is it where you're in Civilized, you're playing shows, recording to where like you ended up getting involved in Cadaver Dog? Because I know that was like James's thing as far as recording, right? And this was just like he would have certain cats on live, like playing live.
Actually, so like he had been working on the songs for the record for forever, like since before I had even moved to Denver, which is in 2014. And at one point, this is maybe like a few years after I joined Civilized, he asked if I would help him record it. And so like me and him and our friend AJ, who was a drummer, would just like get together and like start learning the songs. And he wanted to like do the songs live when he recorded them. And that was the idea. Like he was like, we're never going to play shows. Cause like he had a live band, but like I think like the live band like sometimes was not super on top of like getting together and actually practicing, and so he wasn't sure if they were gonna like he didn't want to like waste studio time if somebody wasn't ready. This is how I remember it, but this was a long time ago, so maybe I'm making that up. But we were doing that, and then I think it was just really hard to get. I mean, you're a drummer, you know, like every drummer is in like 1,000 bands. And so trying to get a drummer to have a regular practice is super difficult. And I think like it ended up just falling apart. And he was like, fuck it, I'm just going to record the record by myself. And so he had a live band already, which was like this guy, Eli, who was in like that band Spectral Voice and some other like metal bands. John was in it. This guy Kevin was in it for a while. This guy Toby was in it for a while. And I think eventually like stuff was just not working out with people's schedules or something like that. And since I'd already learned a ton of the songs, and he knew I was obsessed with Cadaver Dog. Like I think Cadaver Dog is maybe the greatest. It feels weird saying it now because I was in the band for a while, but I think Cadaver Dog is like the greatest modern hardcore band, like period. I think the song Repulsed is like maybe one of the most perfect examples of like what hardcore should be that's ever been recorded. And like I would tell him that all the time before I was in the band. I'd be like, dude, you're in the best band you're in the best band of this decade. I'd be like, you're in the best band of maybe this century. And he'd be like, whatever, man, like it's fine. And so you knew I was super into the band. And so yeah, it was maybe like 2015. No, it was later than that, like it was around the time that like the Civilized and Culture Shock records came out that I started doing stuff with Cadaver Dog, because once Civilized and Culture Shock broke up, he was like, well, fuck, like I want to keep doing music. Like I'm going to start doing Cadaver Dog shows more often. And so I think that was kind of when it all started like picking up again.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so ripping too. And like you mentioned, like Repulsed, and you know, within these bands, like I think my thing was, and maybe this could have been, you know, like me being fashioned through listening to like Slayer and fucking thrash in general, but like I liked Youth Crew and I thought it was cool and everything, but I felt like when I was listening to aggressive shit, I wasn't looking for a positive message. And I don't want that to sound wrong. I shouldn't say like I wasn't looking for a positive message, but like I am looking for aggression and fucking in your face. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about killing people or fucking, you know, any like horrorcore type shit, you know, like that. But, you know, just something that's like, you know, it feels like this record is just spitting in my face because it's fucking disgraced by me being here. Like, yo. And then discovering some of these bands like that, you know, I'm like, here it is.
Well, it's like, I don't know. It's the difference between listening to like Negative Approach and listening to Gorilla Biscuits. Like Gorilla Biscuits is fun and it's good, but like that's like, I don't know. Like it doesn't make me feel anything, you know. Like I'm
not a Gorilla Biscuits fan.
Reunion shows, I have a soft spot for because I like them a lot when I was younger. But either
they're
way, like
fine, but
nobody's feeling like a cathartic moment when they hear Gorilla Biscuits. Like how can you? I don't know. It's like the songs are mostly about like nothing important. um, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not, I
Maybe
don't want to
I'm really
utilize the time like absolutely bashing on something or, having it be whatever or whatnot. But, and everybody has their own like particular tastes and has their own idea of shit. But I think, like you mentioning Gorilla Biscuits, that was always something where when I'm first getting into hardcore and like listening to different things and kind of discovering earlier stuff and kind of maybe essential, like early records, that was one band that came around and I'm just like, this is not doing it, dude, and then kind of getting into some other like more like aggressive in your face shit. I'm like, yo, okay. I don't know what that was. Like, cool, it's fine. Youth of Today, I think, is a little bit closer, to where still maybe even along those lines, but that was a little, a little more aggressive, and I could take hold of that.
Like the music is super aggressive, but some of the lyrics are so embarrassing. Like the first Youth of Today song. So I was on like LimeWire downloading stuff that I'd like seen, in like whatever record sleeves or T-shirts or whatever, and I downloaded that Youth of Today song, Modern Love Story, which is like the worst Youth of Today song, and I didn't listen to them again for like 5 years because I was like, that band is fucking trash, and like they ended up being like one of my favorite bands, but like that song sucks and is super embarrassing, and that's like kind of the problem with Youth Crew is it's like it's super dicey, right? Like it could be super cool or it can be really corny.
It was just like you remember the letdowns of LimeWire when you would like pull up and it was like Deftones, Limp Bizkit, Metallica, and Korn song Here to Stay, and it's like, holy shit, dude, all these bands came together, and then you pull it up, it's like some bootleg ass like NSYNC song. It's like, what the fuck, man? I just spent 4 hours downloading this piece of shit.
That was the thing. Damn it. Is you had to appreciate it so much because it took so much time, like the searching and the downloading. Getting booted off because of phone call, like it's wild. Wild West.
Absolutely. Jeez. Okay, so you within Civilized, and having different bands too, playing Cadaver Dog. How does Culture Shock end up, coming around? How does what is the initial breakdown of writing these songs and getting some boys together?
So I had just like always wanted to do a straight edge band that was just like obnoxiously straight edge, and mostly because like James and I would talk about this all the time. We have this like mentality that like if you're gonna do one of these bands, there's like an amount of like theater to it, but like there's like a role that you're supposed to play, right? Like nobody thinks, except for like rare cases of like super sketchy bands, nobody thinks that like the singer of a band is going to walk off stage and like punch him in the face for no reason. But like the idea is that you want to like take that image and like push it for, like when you're playing, you want to like give off that image. Like you want it to be like a little scary and a little exciting and things like that. And like I always wanted to do just like a super aggressive, super negative straight edge band. And actually it's funny, I'm wearing this shirt. The first riffs were really just like me listening to a bunch of 86 Mentality and like trying to like rip that off, honestly, which is why if you listen to the demo, that song Dilute is like kind of a little bit of like an oi stomper, like because it was like me trying to rip off that sound. And when we started recording the demo, I was trying to rip off his vocals too, and James was like, you gotta stop that. But yeah, it was just like I never thought it would become a band. I was just like writing the riffs, and like the riffs are super simple compared to like the stuff that we were doing in Civilized and like James writes. And so I was like, these guys aren't going to want to play that. And so I just like kind of had them recorded on like a tape recorder at home for like a year or something. And I don't remember how it even came up. I think that guy Wolf, who was in the band, and I were like trying to think of something we could do. And so I showed him these songs, and he was like, yeah, these are cool. And so we talked to James, because James has like a practice space in his old house. He had a practice space where you could like record, and I showed him the song, and he was like, oh yeah, like we should definitely record these. And so he played drums on the demo. Zach played bass on the demo. I played guitar on the demo, and then we did the vocals. And yeah, I mean, I like came in, it took like 4 hours. I showed up I taught them one song, then we'd record it. I teach them the next song, then we'd record it, and then I teach them the next song, and then we'd record it. And then I laid a couple of like the squealy guitar parts over it, did the vocals, and it was done in like an afternoon. But yeah, I was definitely trying to do like the kind of vocals. And James was like, dude, it sounds so fake. It sounds so bad. Like, just pretend you're mad at me. And like my voice that just ended up being this weird hybrid of like Ray Capo with a cold and like, I don't know. People tell me all the time that they really like the vocals, but like at the time I was like, this sucks, dude. But I've kind of gotten used to it now.
Look, I don't want this being an absolute like dick suck session, but I'm going to tell you right now, something that pulls me into a band is drums and vocals. Automatically, if there's something off with either of those, I can leave pretty quick. And my boy's showing me that Culture Shock record and putting it on, and it has the little squealy, guitar parts at the beginning, and your voice coming in was like, oh man, I don't know if this is like a 4-hour record or if it's 20 minutes, but I'm telling you, like, the vocal approach and that, like, in your fucking face, I'm spitting at you in disrespect, like, that's right there, man. And that was like a huge thing of where that band was like such a cool thing, and kind of talking to him like, man, why don't they like do more? And like, why don't they like release something? It's like, it's not about that. Like, they had a time and they had a place and they left it there. And now your dumbass is sitting here, however many years later, still talking about it and still wanting more. Like, I'm like, man,
actually,
for sure.
Like, I don't want to do bands that like end up sucking. Like, which is kind of why the band ended the way it did. Is like the record took forever to come out. It took like 2 years to come out or something after we recorded it. And so by the time we were playing the release show, I was like, I fucking hate this band. I fucking hate these songs. I'm so sick of this shit. And so yeah, we like get up and I'm like, this is Culture Shock, or we're Culture Shock. This is our last show. And like James didn't hear me. So like he played the whole show and like was talking to people afterwards, and they were like, man, it like sucks. You're never gonna play again. And he was like, what? And I actually think he was pretty bummed at me for a while, which is like totally fair because I did not tell anybody. I just like, it was like kind of a baby temper tantrum, honestly. But I think it kind of left a cool legacy because it was like one of those things where like it was a flash in the pan. Like we played like 10 shows total. If you didn't get to see it, like you just didn't get to see it, which like I think is kind of cool. But
there's no. I was gonna say there's like, it's a cool thing even where like digging into lore, like you're looking into like something like City Hunter, where it's like, oh shit, like I can't wait for this new record to come out, or I can't wait for such a, it's like, who the fuck says anything else is gonna happen with this, man? Like, that was a then time. If you got to see those shows, sick. If you got to have that special release of cassette, sick. That was then. Now you're gonna have to go on eBay and try to find something else because they're on a different shit. And I love that. Like, as frustrating as it is, out of wanting something more or wanting more shit on VHS tapes from McCoy, like, I love all of that. But I also think that like there's that ingredient of leaving, motherfuckers wanting more. And then, oh shit, they started this new band, and what is it that's going on here? I love that, dude. It's sick and unfortunate at times because I love, like sophomore records, and I love a band to have a third or fourth record, and it's maybe even better than the first one. Not all the time, though.
The issue with hardcore bands is I feel like it's hard to keep intensity for that long. Like, it's the same reason that hardcore songs aren't long is because like there's only so much time that. So like if I imagine myself at a show, right, and like a band starts playing, it's really intense, and like I'm sort of like feeling that tension and like feeling in like a heightened state of like, is something dangerous about to happen or whatever. Like maybe not so much now, but like when I was younger, like there's only so long that you can like sustain that before you kind of get like numbed out to it. And so for me, like songs shouldn't be long. Records shouldn't be long, and like bands shouldn't really be around that long. Like you should come in, like hit hard once or twice, and then like go do something else because like at a certain point you're just redoing things or like just extending. I don't know. Like I feel like it at some point starts to dilute the impact of like the rest of the hard hitting stuff, and so yeah, I don't think bands should be around for forever, and if they are, it should be like sparse releases just randomly happening every, like, who knows, like 5 years or something like that, so that you can kind of like keep up. Like if we were still playing shows like once a month or something, like nobody would give a shit. But like we've played 2 shows or something since we like broke up, and like both of them have been like fucking insane shows,
With
which is
Culture
cool.
Shock?
Like, yeah, yeah. We did one show the
Fuck
night
me.
before I moved to Seattle. Yeah, we did one show the night before I moved to Seattle, but we were listed as Cadaver Dog. It was a show that they were setting up. It was like a benefit for like a fest they were doing in Denver, and we said Cadaver Dog was going to play, but I was moving the next day, and so we were like, wouldn't it be kind of cool? And so we did that. And played that show, and it was wild. And then last year we played one show in Denver, but that was like not a secret thing. It was like it was announced.
Whoa. I don't know how I fucking missed that. That's insane. So the initial demo is the first 4 or 5 tracks on the LP, right? Well, Dilute wasn't on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Was the initial like Culture Shock, was that the first song that you wrote for like this new project, or?
Dude, the thing literally came about because like I was playing guitar and I like I didn't have any riffs yet and I didn't know where to start, and so I was just kind of like playing something. I was like, dude, that's actually kind of cool. And then that like second riff like just came out like kind of immediately. The rest of it took a lot of work, but like those 2 riffs just kind of like fell out right when I started like kind of thinking about writing some new songs for something. And yeah, the intro that like people always like freak out about when we play is like the first. It was just like randomly hitting a note, but yeah, it was technically the first thing I wrote.
Dude, that's so fucking awesome. I mean, within this record, like, I guess, first of all, like, touching on a couple of the tracks and maybe just a memory, maybe something funny that happened playing it live. I don't give a fuck. Anything that you might have, just a little insight behind this demo and having Chainbreaker. What could you tell us something about this track?
Yeah, so I think the thing that most people probably don't realize is that like the song, it sounds like such generic like hardcore lyrics, right? Like, oh, you're my friend, you stab me in the back, like whatever. But actually it's like supposed to be about myself. And like how I often just like do things. It's like I do things that are like super shitty and like self-sabotaging and things like that. So it was like a lot of just like frustration with myself. And that's like the lyrics sound super corny and cheesy and about like they sound like a youth crew song, but it's actually more about like me. So that's like the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. Because if you listen to it, actually, Max, who was in the band Devil's Den from Kansas City, he like asked me about it once, and he was like, "It kind of doesn't make sense. Like, I don't get that song." And I like lied to him because I was like a little embarrassed about it. I was like, no, it's just like whatever. It's just like about like whatever, friend broke edge or something. And then I like went up to him later that night. I was like, actually, here's what it's really about. And he's like, oh, I think that makes more sense.
I mean, I've never gotten a Youth Crew vibe from listening to that song, so I guess that's probably a good thing.
But the other thing is there's like I guess you could call it like the chorus of that song and the intro, both of those riffs are just one note. And it's because like literally I was like, I had like the mosh part and I had the fast part and I was like, dude, I can't write any more riffs. It's like everything I'm writing sucks right now. And so like, I'm just going to play one note. I'm just going to play one note. And I think I brought the songs to James and I was like, dude, this song is kind of cool. Like there's a whole part that's just one note. And he was like, so there's a lot of like moments on the records that are like that where I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to do something stupid. And then it ends up working out.
Oh my god. I love those times because then it sparks something, that later down the line you're like, fuck, I'm glad that we had this conversation. But like it's the worst when you come, maybe with an idea and like you just racked your brain on this and it's going to sound sick and you present it and everybody's like, that fucking sucks. Like, fuck.
No, I will say this. I think one of the reasons that like a lot of the bands that we were doing in Denver ended up being cool is I think James is a really good songwriter, and he's really good at working with people. So like a lot of it is that. But honestly, and I tell this to people all the time, I think like the single most important skill that you can learn if you want to do something creative is to like learn and be okay with being like, this thing I made sucks, and like I need to make it better. Because like that's honestly the biggest thing is like we would write songs for Civilized and we'd work on them for a while and then just be like, this sucks, and like completely redo it.
Yeah.
And like we would do that often. And like a lot of times that's really all you need. Music doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to be like a virtuoso, but like as long as you can like accept and like acknowledge to yourself that something you did was bad and needs to be better, like then you can write good music. It's just a matter of time at that point.
Sure, sure.
So,
You know,
yeah,
in
it's like bringing stuff to people, but
yeah. I think, you know, there's like two kind of concepts, you know, within that, because like I I see it all the time and appreciate, you know, the fact of like, you know, the kind of angle that you're looking at it. And then there's like the other angle though too, where there's been times where the confidence when you're presenting something, and maybe, you know, it might just be like a guitar thing that you sent a video clip of an acoustic, and it's like, how the fuck am I supposed to imagine what it is that you're telling me right now, dude? Like, what do you want me? What do you want me to do? A D beat to some fucking Yamaha acoustic that you sent me? Like this clip?
yeah.
Like, what is going on here? But you know, you having the confidence in coming in and being like, listen, play through it a couple of times. I'm telling you, this is gonna rip, and then you're like, oh, okay, now it clicks.
When you write the thing, you hear the whole, like when I'm playing like guitar, like I hear the drums and I hear like what I would want the vocals to be roughly, but like you give it to somebody and they just hear like, yeah, you're right, like this like voice memo recording and the distortion is like you can barely hear the notes at all anyway. Like I get it, I do, and I'm
It's
also
like,
that way where I'll be like, yeah.
yeah, you're like, man, this is a great harsh noise act, but that's not a fucking guitar, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so probably one of my favorites, you know, out of both, you know, features here, but Stark Raving Mad. What can you tell us about this track?
This is another one where the lyrics are kind of embarrassing, actually. I knew that we were gonna be. I actually hate this song. I do not like this song.
Unreal.
But I think part of the reason I don't like it is because of what I'm about to tell you. I have such a hard
Okay.
time. I have such a hard time writing lyrics. I am so bad at it, and it takes me so long. And then I end up getting like to the point where like they need to be done tomorrow, and then they get rushed. Like I remember when the record came out, somebody on the Jerk booth was like, "Dude, I just read the Culture Shock lyric sheet. Is this guy in kindergarten?" I remember they were like roasting me because the lyrics are so bad. But I was
Oh my
reading,
God.
I was reading Game of Thrones at the time, and so like I don't know if you've watched it or read it, but like
No.
literally the song is about the chapter where they cut off Ned Stark's head. That's why it's called Stark Raving Mad, and it's about like a king on his throne. Like, because I was just like reading a fantasy book, and I was like, all right, like this works. I can use this as inspiration, and then I was like, I'll figure out a way to like tie it to something in real life. And it just never did. It's just about fucking Game of Thrones, which is like so embarrassing, but it is what it is.
Dude, that is so sick. I mean, I love that you, like you mentioned, even to the aspect of like Jerk booth. I have always like,
Yeah,
it's always been something within like, you know, just the fucking goofballs on there where it's like, if you release something on Youth Attack, I feel like it'd just be something where, like, I'm just gonna avoid it, because even if it's the best thing they've ever heard, something's gonna come out and it's somehow gonna fucking hurt my feelings.
I simultaneously got like the highest high and the lowest low on the Jerk booth on the same day after the record came out. And somebody was like, somebody said they didn't like Culture Shock because the singer looked like a J. Crew model, and then somebody else asked if I was in kindergarten because the lyrics were so bad.
Oh
And I
my
was
God,
like, all
dude.
right, like that balances out. I don't need to look anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
and
like,
like the fun, man, it's like crazy that you have like that story to it too, because like when I'm listening to this and throughout time, and it's not going to change, mind you, but I will tell you the presentation of like the vocals, the lyrics that are to it, everything is done with a conviction. Where I think that's another thing maybe that, you know, might be important, where like, you know, younger people, if you have something where you're like, oh man, this is about something kind of goofy or silly, and you go into like doing a recording and you're kind of like worried about that aspect, like it might come across and people might not, people might see like a disingenuine aspect to it. But dude, that song fucking rips. I still love it.
Like,
It's like
I
insane.
definitely have a hard time with it. And I'll tell you what, like the vocals thing is super hard for that reason. I think for the record, we had to do the vocals 4 separate times because I like
Damn.
kept not sounding right, and then I would like my voice would get thrown out. Like literally took like we did all the instruments for the vocals in 2 days, and it was like 4 months or something. We had like 2 days to do vocals. I couldn't. We did something, but they sounded terrible. And then like we tried coming back the next weekend. They sounded bad again. And then I did a session with my friend Joey in his like home studio, and then they sounded bad again. So I had to go back and do another session with him until they finally sounded right. It was like it's really rough. And you're right. It does like. I'm glad that like James and McCoy were kind of pushing on it because like at a certain point I was like, dude, I'm fucking done. Like I'm not doing this anymore. I'm like losing my voice once a week, like having to go into work and like I can't talk and like people are like, are you sick or something? What's going on with you? And they'd be like, no, you got to do it again. They don't sound right. They don't sound as good as they do on the demo. I'm like it was worth it in the long run, but it sucked at the time.
Yeah, no shit. Wow.
Feel that conviction, right? You're standing in a silent room, like just barking. Weird and awkward.
Every once in a while, your like headphones fall off, and you're like, God damn, what am I doing? Like, where did the decision come to be here?
Especially because we recorded the record with he was not like a punk. He was like a real. We like saved up some money. Our friend Wolf, who was in the band, went to school for audio engineering, and so he got us a hookup with like a real studio that did like tape to tape, reel to reel tape recording. So the record is actually recorded on tape reels. So like when you hear like the tape drag on some of the songs, that's like actually that's not an effect. That's him actually like pulling the tape while it's playing into like another tape
Holy
machine.
Shit.
Because we wanted to have like that kind of vibe. So all of that like weird artifacting and stuff is actually real analog stuff. But this guy was like a classic rock guy who did like jam bands and stuff. And like, dude, when I was trying to do the vocals, he was like, I could see how miserable he was in the booth because I would keep having to redo tracks and he'd just be like, he was like, clearly in his head, he was like, this band sucks. Why are they wasting my time? It was so weird.
Oh man, it's funny, and not by any means that this is about me, but it's funny you mentioned that because I remember having a time where we had like rented out like a little bit of a space recording, and we'd gone into the studio, and the dude was like, you can use my kit, or you can bring in your stuff, and I like, of course, want to use my own shit if I can, and you can just mic it up or whatever because out of comfortability. And I get in there, and this dude's got a fucking Neil Peart. I mean, gongs, 20 pieces up here, cymbals all over it, and I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't even know where to start on breaking this shit down. I've never seen half of this stuff. Like, what do you want? I'll just play with this, and it was awful, and the worst recording we did, and it just portrayed because I'm just like,
because you're
I don't
like,
know, man.
I don't know how to play this.
Yeah, I've got Slipknot's fucking drum kit in front of me, and I'm like trying to do all this other shit that we never like played in practice.
Yeah, right.
Stupid as fuck.
Wild.
All right, so the LP, the first track, Nothing. What can you tell us about this bad boy? And I gotta say, these last tracks too, were these like written? I mean, you mentioned like some like years. Was this like some time that you had these before you ended up recording the LP?
We had started once we started playing shows, we started practicing regularly after the demo came out, and we would just like work on songs as much as possible. So like I would try and bring riffs like every time we practiced, or we would like try and work on songs every time we practiced. Like we would run through our set and then like try and work on new stuff. But the demo came out in 2014. I think we recorded the LP a year later. So like there wasn't a ton of time between then. We mostly just like them out, started playing them at shows to test them out and see if people liked them, and then yeah, like went and recorded them. But that song "Nothing" was kind of like I think that's my favorite song on the record, because that's like kind of to me what the band ended up being about is like, I started the band because I wanted to do this like really aggressive straight edge band, but like if you listen to like the later songs, none of them are about that, because like I kind of stopped like caring about it being a straight edge band. Really wanted to be more of a band that was about like my own intense feeling of like isolation, and so like that song is like literally about people like I don't know, it's like, it's like this weird momentary like flash in the pan fury when like someone comes up to me and like acts like we're buds, and I'm like in like that kind of heightened state. I feel this a lot when I go to shows. I think because the music kind of like gets to me, is I get like really weird and like standoffish because like I'm in this like weird kind of heightened state, especially when we would play because I get super anxious. And so like people would come and talk to me and like want to goof off and be buds, and I'd be like, no, I'm not here to goof off. I'm not here to be buds. Like in normal space, I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Like we're buds, let's hang out. But in that like time, I'd be in this weird headspace and I'd be like, no, we're not friends. We are nothing. And like, so like that song is literally about like
Sick.
it's literally like all the people who like knew and supported me and like like welcomed me into their city and like come see my bands, and it was me being like, no, fuck you, I hate you, we're nothing, like we are not friends. Which I think is part of the reason I like it so much, is because it just like feels like what I want the band to be. Like I want the band to be like, I am miserable, you cannot change that, don't ever talk to me again. Like that's how I view Culture Shock by the end of the band.
Okay. I mean, and like it's just that space every once in a while where
Yeah.
you go and you kind of get a little more comfortable and you get a little ease, and the next thing you know, you got a boot in your chest. Like it's like, don't get too comfortable. Let's not let's keep our eyes and our heads kind of on a swivel, and that's, I mean, that's hardcore, and that's a fucking scene.
I remember when Civilized went on tour, we did an interview at WFMU, that like NYU radio station, and Zach described something that I actually thought was like really well put, which was like he had mentioned something about like most of the lyrics being like, we have like a flash in the pan, like quick emotional reaction to something. Like when somebody does something and you get pissed for like a split second and then you cool off. Like most of the songs for like all of these bands, I think, are like taking that moment and just like blowing it up and like being all the way inside of it. And so like, yeah, there's like tons of violent imagery and stuff like that, but we're not like, assholes walking around fighting people or something. It's just like that like moment where you feel like somebody wronged you or did something and you just like want to like do something like just like violent or hurtful or angry or whatever. And I always thought that was a really good way to describe it. And that song is kind of, yeah, like I mentioned, it's kind of like that. It's like blowing up this like one tiny feeling into something like much larger.
Right. And I think it's something too where like, trying to think of how to say it. Maybe even earlier on, or I feel like it's more of a parental thing where you look at a cover and it's a dead body laying there, and it's like, oh, these guys are killers, and you're not listening to that shit because these guys are evil and they need church. And like when you look at things and you use a little bit more of a broad mind of like, oh, what is this cover trying to portray, or what is it that maybe now I'm enticed and kind of wondering, and maybe if I go and I listen to it, it's like, oh, this shit is just very intense and in the moment, and that imagery just kind of ties along into it a little bit. It's like it's kind of funny sometimes hearing certain people's interpretations of things, because it's like, dude, just because there's somebody mangled on the front doesn't mean that like that's where I'm at all the time. Like that's not a thing. Maybe sometimes, but
I did an interview for a zine when the band was still around, and like one of the first questions they asked was like, yeah, like, do you really beat people up for drinking? And I was just like, dude, are you fucking kidding? Like, no, of course not. Like, I'm a human being with like a job. I'm in my 30s. Like, I'm not walking around beating people up outside a liquor store. Like, what is wrong with you? But like, I also kind of get that that's like what we portray with all the imagery. But like at a certain point, like I'm like, dude, yeah, like get a reality check. Like nobody's doing that. Like,
I almost feel like that
doing
guy
that.
though deserves the answer of like, yeah, yep, that's where we're at. That's what we got going on, man. And it's gonna be you if you're putting me in that position. So
the one question I get
stupid fucking question.
The one question I get all the time too is people always think that the tagged up liquor store in the record insert is real, but it's not. It's like a Photoshop thing. Like it's a liquor store that has like Denver Wolfpack and Straight Edge and stuff tagged all over it, and every single person I've ever told that that's not real is like, wait, really? I thought you guys were like fucking out in the streets, like really doing real shit. No. I know, like literally, I was like 34 when that record came out. Like, I'm not getting arrested for tagging the liquor store.
Here's my hesitancy when you started bringing this up, and you know my blank face is tagging is something that I generally don't want to. I don't try to like, you know, bring up in interviews just because like I'm not trying to get somebody in trouble, or I'm not trying to get somebody who's like, oh yeah, man, this is my tag, and the next thing you know, somebody's watching that shit and they're like, this shit's all over my town, this fucking asshole. Now I got to go and help out. You know, it's like I can't do that, brother. So I mean, certainly something like, that I've seen, but that is funny. That is really funny. Holy shit. Like, oh man.
Well, that's the thing is then like people are always disappointed. I'm like, dude,
that's part of the fun. I feel like though, you know, it's that's
like
funny.
The lore of it, right?
Yeah. So like, and kind of the last thing of that, we talked on the test press, the actual cover art of the LP. What can you tell us about, you know, what goes into that? And super striking, hard as hell. I love it.
Such an ordeal. So like we originally had a plan. Hold on, I can pull this out. So like in the records there was like this sticker.
Yeah.
This was like essentially the original plan for the record cover. Was we were going to take a picture of me with like the hood up, doing like kind of like the hooded mosher thing, but we were going to get this guy we knew who did like really, really detailed paintings to paint it. And then once he was done painting it, we were going to spray paint a giant X over the face. And it was going to be like super sick. But it ended up just being really hard. Like, hey, he's like a real artist. We were going to want to pay him, and it was going to end up being kind of expensive, and it was going to take a really long time. So we ended up like not being able to do that, but we were kind of waiting on it for a long time because we thought that was still the plan. And so it was getting to be like last minute by the time we realized it wasn't going to happen. And so we'd taken these photos, and then this was like the plan for the record cover was to do something like this. And then Mark, I think, was like, what if we had it be like broken glass instead of the X to like be the X? And I pictured it as just being like two kind of shatters in the glass. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then when I actually saw the record, I was like, oh shit, this is like so much more detailed. And then like that weird, like reflective coating on it, which like, it's kind of hard to even like tell in a picture what it really looks like. But yeah, it like transformed so much from like the original Inception to like what it ended up becoming. And like, I think it's kind of divisive. I think a lot of people really don't like it, and some people really do.
Oh no.
But
that's
people, like I'll meet people and they'll be like, I really like that record, but I don't get the cover. And I was like, that's fine.
You mentioned like the smaller like photo shots. Is that you in the hoodie?
Photos. It's at Zach used to have this like art gallery space. It's like in that room. And then I think there's maybe another one of those shots somewhere on the record. I don't have the regular pressing next to me right now, so I can't check. But yeah, it's like, that's me. It's the easiest photo to pose for because my face was like, fully blacked out. But
that's sick. I mean, I love that shit. And it's certain little things too where the appreciation out of being able to do these things is just knowing little things like that. And like not like typically in an interview it's like, man, how's the tour and how are the fucking babes and how's the fucking booze? You know, it's like, dude, there's so much cool shit going on, and like all you're focusing on are these like hyperactive moments of like whatever's gonna catch, you know, like I don't know. So, you know, if you feel like it's something like boring or kind of silly, like I think it's so fucking cool to be able to know that, and you know, and people that are fans too, to be able to like see that shit too. It's cool details, and it's awesome, you know, conversation to be able to like sit in on and hear, man. And I absolutely love it. I love everything about the band, and what lore that you guys put out there.
Appreciate it. I mean, for me, that's like the biggest thing because like I love hardcore. I've loved hardcore since I was like a kid, and like for me, like so much of it is like the stories and stuff that go with it. Like being from Cleveland, fucking Dwid from Integrity would do the wildest shit, and you would just hear all these crazy stories about like Dwid going in zines and talking shit about Judge so that Judge would come to Cleveland and fight Integrity so that Integrity would get more popular, and like doing all kinds of crazy shit like that. And so like, for me, that is like the best part of all this is like kind of the wacky, like crazy lore and stuff.
Dude, I love it. And I even love the poking fun. I think that that Youth Attack in general has always kind of had, you know, where it's like the roundabout, and even sometimes you think that you have it all figured out, and then, you know, they're just kind of sitting back waiting to, you know, be able to choke on fucking whatever food and beverage that they're sitting on, just laughing at people. It's fun, man.
I still think maybe McCoy's like greatest idea as like a piece of art through Youth Attack. So, you know, he did like the record collector gloves and the scene drama popcorn and stuff. I think printing the Jerk Booth into a book was so genius because it's like, dude, it is just the shittiest people being fully anonymous and being fully shitty. And like, if you were one of those people and you read that book, you'd be like, oh, dude. Like, you'd be like, I know that was me, and that's so embarrassing. Like, I think that is the most genius thing.
Man. That's fucking awesome. That is awesome. Dude, this has been absolutely great. You were mentioning earlier you'd had like some sort of a project. Is there anything that you can touch on or speak on as far as release or anything coming up for that?
So it is Alex from Regional Justice Center, is Joey from Rob Reed, our friend Kevin, who plays in a bunch of bands out here, like this band Apex Predator, and he's in like a more alt-type band called Prim, and our friend Mason, who does a bunch of cool bands like this band Crawl Space and some other stuff. We're doing a band called Capsule, which is we have a demo out.
You're in that band?
Yeah. You couldn't tell from the vocals?
Unreal. I'm gonna have to go back and listen again. That's insane.
That's the new band we're doing. There was like originally we thought it was just going to be a demo and then be done with it because I was supposed to like move for work, but it turns out I'm not. I'm going to be here another year, so I think we're going to try and bang out a couple more songs and maybe do like a 7-inch or something. We'll see.
Son of a bitch, dude, that is it. Listen, this has happened a couple of times, okay, where I get hyperactive on like one small detail. And I'm just like, oh, I can't wait. I've always wondered about this. I love this. This was Culture Shock. All right. I wanted to hear about Civilized, and I wanted to hear about Right Idea and kind of dig into all the things. Culture Shock, though, has been such a big thing in like the past years that I've been introduced and loving that record to where is it? I mean, is it on your Instagram that you're in Capsule? Do you have like a thing, or am I thinking of another page? Because I know somebody's page, like in their bio, that has that.
I don't remember. Like, normally I don't put anything, but maybe I did. I can't remember all the time.
Fucking punch myself in the face if I didn't even bring anything up about that. Holy shit. No kidding.
Cool. Yeah.
I've absolutely heard this band, and I remember it ripping. So, yet again, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Jesus Christ. That's insane. So, Capsule, that is a thing and not in raps.
That is a thing. We did the demo, but I think we're gonna make some tapes. We're like talking about some layout stuff right now. I think we're just gonna make some tapes ourselves. I'll send you one.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, hopefully
awesome.
a record sometime. This is
Dude, so sick. Jeff, this has been absolutely.
it's the same sort of shit. Like, it's just like noisy, angry hardcore.
It rips. I absolutely know the band. I just, for whatever reason, it slipped me to look into or to even realize that that was you. I remember listening to it for sure on different occasions. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at it in a different light because I didn't realize that you were in it.
The lyrics are better this
Jesus.
time too. The lyrics are not as trash.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. This has been absolutely awesome, Jeff. I can't thank you enough. For your time. Honestly, this has been fucking incredible, dude. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate all the kind words, and I appreciate you inviting me to be on. Like, I can tell people now that I was on like the same show as somebody from Megadeth, which is fucking badass. That was like, I know I texted you about that, but I was so excited about that.
No, it's cool, man. It's absolutely ripping. I thank you just as much as anybody else for their time, and I really appreciate it. Anybody who tapped in a little bit late, I'll have this within like the next month or so on my YouTube page in full, and it won't be the vertical fucking shit look that it is right now. But I appreciate everybody hanging out and your time, man. Thank you so much once again for the time, dude. All right, buddy. Take care, Jeff. Take care. Have a good night, man.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.